Down to the SEC, Jurassic Park to us. We got to watch number 3 Tennessee go up against number 19 Kentucky, and then we got a chance to watch the biggest cocktail bowl, or however they call that, Georgia, Florida, with the number 1 Bulldogs. Um, Fellas, let's start with Tennessee because that one just seemed to have a little bit more of a definitive um, finish. Tennessee against a gnarly Kentucky team, and nobody loves the Wildcats more than we do. Kentucky, that's the worst beating they had all year, and they've been battling teams 44-6. It wasn't even close. Will Levis, former Penn Stater, Hack, you probably hosted him on his recruiting trip,
I might have.
held to 98 yards passing. Tennessee is starting to flex a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. All of the headlines have been on offense, and rightfully so, but they also have been playing some complementary football. And most teams, one side is going to hear a little bit more noise than the other. 44-6, the Fighting Josh Heupels, big time knockout over Kentucky. Flip it over to Georgia, 42-20 over a game Florida team. But the Bulldogs, 555 total yards of offense today, and pretty balanced, 315 in the air, 240 on the ground. What was the more impressive win, Tennessee or Georgia? Felder, we'll go with you first.
I mean, it's Tennessee, right? They played a ranked opponent. We know that Florida is not good. Florida's a team that is struggling. As Hack said, they're in the wilderness right now.
I would put them in the wilderness.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't even do that either.
They're 4-3
for what Florida wants to
today.
For what Florida wants to be.
Well, but again, under new management, they got that big banner outside the store.
It's also perspective too. I don't think they're that far off, man. It's not like they don't have players. It's just it's part of that process.
That's a good. I love that you said that, because the big thing for me, you take Richardson away, and what scares you on that team offensively?
Man. They're mortal. They're pedestrian, to be honest.
I like ATN. I think Johnson's good, but like, what scares you on that team offensively if Richardson's not at quarterback?
Well, would you learn more today, Felder? Yes, Georgia took care of business, but I mean, 555 yards. They're playing more definitive football. The days of messing around with Kent State in the fourth quarter, sneaking out of Missouri.
Well,
they had to climb the fence to get out of there against Missouri. Big knockout today, and then Tennessee going wild against Georgia light team. That to me, that's what Kentucky is. They're like diet Georgia. They're diet Georgia.
I got to put things in silos. So when it comes to Georgia, they scored 40 points because they could. It was easy because Florida's not very good, and we saw Florida make a few plays, but Florida. I think Florida they are a middling football team, and I don't say. So you know what? I take back saying that they're bad. They are middling. They're going to be a team that is 6-6 or 7-5, and that's what they're going to be. Middling. That's fine. I think that's a fair assessment of that ball club. So Georgia did that because they because they could, not because they wanted to. And by the way they used Darnell Washington split out, injected into my veins. The guy who's the same size as LeBron James, just out there playing, like, yeah, do that more. Do more of that. That's what I was getting at when I said, are they going to use all their weapons? But they did, and I love it. But for me, with Tennessee, I think we learned a lot about Kentucky. We learned that Kentucky, you can't just be Chris Rodriguez and have that be all that you did. That can't be the thing. And this goes back to my whole entire theory that we talked about earlier in the show. Do you want to be a team that scores 20 or a team that scores 40? And Tennessee wants to score 40 every game. Georgia scored 40 because they could. Tennessee wants to score 40 every game, because I truly believe if Georgia got up on Kentucky 24-6, they pump the brakes. They play good defense. They win that game 24-6, maybe 30-6.
And they get everybody involved.
Yeah.
I like this point, Hack. But to me, the story with Tennessee, it isn't the 44. Like,
It's the 6.
It's the 6.
Yeah.
It's the 6 against the squad led by a veteran quarterback that's had success, that can get it up and down the field multiple ways.
What do you think about their defense?
What, Tennessee's?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, heading into this game, they were, from a pass defense standpoint, and they were risking it all too. I mean, there was a couple times in that Alabama game when you're sitting there, you're like, damn, these motherfuckers really going 0 right now. Bryce Young, quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, really?
A lot of yoga vibes with that defense. A lot of bending. That defense was so bendy. I was like, man.
But even going back like early in the year to the Pitt game, like this defense, man, was really trying to figure out an identity. And again, Felder, like I don't think it's like necessarily talking about names and recognition, but I think when you talk about the ability and what you can attract at that roster, like a place like Tennessee does not struggle with getting talent to Tennessee. So I think defensively they're just trying to figure out who they were. And I completely agree with you, George. I think that 6, shit, man, that's the biggest step in the right direction for this Tennessee team, because if they start playing confidently on defense, they already played complementary to the offense. But I think it was more so they were feeding off of the offense's momentum and drive. And they're like, all right, cool, man. If we hold them to 38, like we're good. But now if you start getting a defense that is cocky enough and confident enough to say, no, fuck that. They ain't getting to 21 today. If they don't get to 21, they don't got a prayer. When Tennessee starts turning that corner, which I think they're doing against a really good Tennessee team, and again, you got a kid who's projected to be a top 10 draft pick over there pulling the trigger. Granted, banged up a little bit.
Sure.
You hold him to 98 yards, 16 completions, and you turned him over 3 times. That's a big step in the right direction for me, and I think it's only, obviously next week's the big test, but I think that they did all they could to prepare themselves both physically, mentally, and emotionally heading into Athens next week.
They certainly did not overlook this Kentucky game as many people suggested.